So what do you like? What runs through your mind when you're breastfeeding? Just how you did before to me.
It's just a time when I can relax with Oliver and I don't have to worry about the house or anything else, especially having another child to look after. It's just my special time with him, and a time where I could just relax really. I don't find it tiring because nobody else can do it for you, so you can't just palm the baby off on somebody else. You have to actually sit down and relax, and if I didn't do that I don't think I'd sit down all day really.
So what's good about breastfeeding for you then?
It's just a time in the day where I can sit down and have time to think and relax, and I don't have to worry about the house or doing chores or anything else, and I just get time to spend with Oliver, and it's just my time really, and I don't feel guilty about sitting down, whereas if I just decided to sit down and play with him, having another child, somehow you feel guilty because there's so many other things that you have to do. It's just our special time.
And what do you think about your local borough introducing this? Just tell me what you would say. Talk to me, okay? Don't talk to the car. Okay, so just what do you reckon? What do you think about this promoting breastfeeding in public? Because it's one thing to do it at home; it's another to do it in public, isn't it? What's your experience of feeding in public?
I actually haven't come across any objections really from anybody, but I just think any encouragement for breastfeeding mothers is wonderful, because especially at the beginning you do feel very self-conscious, and to know that you are allowed to do it, and if anybody says anything to you, you've got backup, just helps you feel confident about doing it really.
This is your second child, but with your first child, when you were all new to it, did you feel vulnerable feeding in public?
I didn't feed sorry.
What sort of things do people say when you're feeding in public?
Well, I haven't actually had anything bad said to me, but I've heard that other people have, and people seem to... Sorry to you. Yeah.
What sort of things do people say to you in public? Have you found breastfeeding a negative experience?
I haven't, but some friends definitely have, and they find that people feel a bit intimidated by it, a bit like it's forced upon them, and that it should be something that should be kept to yourself. They don't understand that breastfed babies can't really be kept to routine strictly like bottle-fed babies can, and that you have to carry on living your life, especially if you want to feed for up until the first year or something.
What sort of things do people say sometimes that are pretty upsetting as a mother?
Just that people find that they don't want to be confronted with it really, and can you stop it?
Right, off we go then. What are some of the awful things? Do people say awful things to mothers who breastfeed?
They have done, and I've heard that people would prefer you to stay at home until your baby's weaned off, basically, and not feed anywhere except in your home, which is very difficult to do when you've got more than one child and you have to get on with shopping, and also you want to have a bit of time to be social with friends and sit in cafes, and it's a very relaxing time for mothers.
My name's Mark Fisher.
Mark Fisher?
Yep.
Okay, and you're a courier?
Yes.
Okay, right. Now, what's your view on breastfeeding in public?
I don't see that there's anything distasteful about it. It's something that needs to be done. Most other things are done in public, so I don't see why breastfeeding shouldn't be. I certainly wouldn't be offended if I was walking down the street or sitting on a bus and somebody was breastfeeding.
She's 7 weeks.
Right. Can you tell me your name, sir?
McCann, Neil McCann.
Sorry, Neil?
McCann.
How do you spell McCann?
M-C-C-A-N-N.
Okay, right. And your father, obviously.
That's exactly right.
What's your view about breastfeeding in public?
I think it's perfectly acceptable. I don't think that people should get too upset about it. I think probably mothers should be a little bit careful about where they do it, and they should do it privately.
You mean not flash too much boob?
Not flash too much boob, exactly, but I think it's possible to do it in public so long as you're discreet.
My name's Tony Braddon.
Braddon, with 2 Ds.
2 Ds, O and N.
Right. Sorry, say that again.
2 Ds, O and N. Braddon.
Braddon, okay. What is your view about breastfeeding in public places?
Children have to be fed. It's the most natural thing in the world for a mother to want to feed the child. When a child is hungry, a child is not prepared to wait too long. So I have nothing against a woman feeding a child in public.
Do you think some women are sort of indiscreet and flash a bit too much boob?
No, don't think so at all. Love to see a bit of boob. More the merrier. I mean, when you get to my age, you long for things like that, remembering the past with delight.
Caroline Braddon.
And what's your view?
Well, as I say with my husband, I have no view. I don't think a baby has to be fed, and those that disagree with it, I think are totally wrong.
So, what's your for first?
What's your? Oh, can you tell me your name first?
Tessa Leonard.
Leonard.
Yes, Leonard.
Wonderful. Okay, and can you tell me your view on breastfeeding in public areas like cafes and restaurants?
It doesn't bother me at all. I'm quite happy to see people feeding their children in public so long as it's discreetly and it doesn't interfere with other people's lives.
Do you see any negative aspects to breastfeeding in public?
Not at all, because it's such a natural thing. I can't understand why people object.
Great. Okay, so tell me, what's your view on breastfeeding in public places like a restaurant or cafe?
It doesn't really bother me, to be quite honest.
Some people are really anti, and they really don't like it.
No, it doesn't bother me at all. No, not one bit.
What do you think about it?
Well, I don't think there's any reason why anybody shouldn't do it in public.
You don't feel uncomfortable when people sort of lift up their top?
No. Times have changed, haven't they?
What was it like in your day then, when you were feeding?
Oh, we couldn't do that. Not in public. Oh no, not even. That you always went into a separate room, even if you was indoors. In my day.
What was people's view of breastfeeding in public then? What would they have done to you if you'd whipped out a boob?
Well, if you whipped down a boob, I don't think they'd like it very much.
All right, thanks. So what do you feel about breastfeeding in public?
I think that it's an excellent thing to do. Not only does it help you to regain your figure afterwards, but it also helps the children in as much as it gives them some immunities towards future diseases.
And you don't mind if a mum lifts up her top in the middle of your dinner or something in a restaurant?
I've never done it in public. I've always breastfed at home, and I do not think it's a good idea to do it in public. But then I'm probably old-fashioned.
What don't you like about seeing that happening in public on a park bench?
I don't know. I can't describe it. It's just something that goes against the grain, perhaps, because of my age, and I think that people seem to be rather proud of exposing themselves.
That's wonderful. Okay, so it's Linda Ogilvie, Ogilvie Davis with just IS, store manager. What is, hang on, don't come too close because you'll go. Store's view on breastfeeding in public areas?
Really don't have a view, whatever makes our customers happy. Doesn't seem to be a problem.
So you've got facilities for mothers to feed their babies here?
Yes, we do. We can accommodate them, not a problem. We are very conscious of being in an area that has a lot of families, and we're looking at redesigning the areas that we have that are available to parents to take care of their babies, not just mothers but fathers also.
So you're going to have unisex facilities?
Yes, we will have unisex changing facilities because fathers change babies too.
So what's the store, what does Dickinson & Jones do to help mums who want to breastfeed?
Well, we try to provide them with a quiet area where it's peaceful, or at least a quiet corner of our restaurant. And it's not a problem. It never has been a problem here.
But the actual breastfeeding room that you've got downstairs for mums who don't want to feed in public is not in the best state of repair, is it?
We have a baby changing area as opposed to an actual breastfeeding room. And at the moment it is in a facility that only women can reach, and we plan to make it unisex because after all, fathers change babies. So it will be in an area that will accommodate both parents.
That's bad news for all the fathers out there.
Quite a lot of fathers quite enjoy the task.
Can I ask you what your view on breastfeeding in a public area is, like in this restaurant?
I see. Well, as long as breastfeeding is carried out discreetly, no problem.
Do you see any problems with it when it's not so discreet? What's your experience been?
I just find it I find it could embarrass some people. But as long as people are...
What don't you like to see?
It's done discreetly. I mean, you know, with suitable attire and, you know, don't expose yourself unnecessarily. Spend money instead.
So how do you feel about breastfeeding in a restaurant or something like here?
I can't be sure about that one. No, I really can't. Could you think that was... Would you like that? I might well do, yes. I know, you know. I suppose if it could be discreet, but then again, how can it be? You know? No, I don't know. I really don't know what I feel like.
I think I'd prefer if there was an ante-room that they could go in and feed the child in a separate room rather than in a public restaurant.
How does it make you feel if you're having your cup of tea and somebody's breastfeeding? It's quite a natural thing, isn't it?
It's very natural, but I don't think it's necessary to feed a baby in a restaurant that's full of all ages and children, older children, and a mixed section. I would say it'd be much better to go into a little ante-room.
So can you tell me just how it makes you feel then?
Well, I think I would find it embarrassing. Yes, I would.
Yeah, right. Well, I haven't got any real objection if they do it in a sort of delicate way. I mean, there's a vulgar way of doing it and a more delicate way. I've seen children being breastfed. And there should certainly be some provision, either a room or something like that. So, no real objection, no.
What would you term vulgar? What have you seen that has made you feel uncomfortable?
Well, it's difficult to say. I mean, you know, you can do it in a discreet way. You can sit quietly with the baby and just feed it, you know, and sort of cover it, or you can expose it, and which they do abroad. And you don't think anything of it then, do you, really? It's just that we're not used to seeing it here.
I feel they should have a room so they could just go in, because it could be embarrassing for the young girl.
But supposing the mum does want to feed, how would you feel if you were dining next to her and she just whipped out a boob on the next table?
Wouldn't worry me at all. No. But I think that, you know, some young wives get embarrassed, don't they? So what would they do?
I'll show you.
Yeah.